A young woman named Chloe Morgan stands in shock as guards declare her under arrest for the illegal production of poison and high treason against the kingdom. She desperately tries to explain that she and Professor Sutherland were only trying to make the world a better place, but her pleas are ignored. Standing before her are the accusatory figures of Prince Dominique and Lady Gabriella. The guards present a massive pile of poisonous herbs to the second prince, Dominique, confirming that they found everything just as Professor Sutherland had testified. Chloe looks on in horror, realizing it's all a lie. Prince Dominique embraces a concerned-looking Lady Gabriella, declaring Chloe's actions to be a sinful act and her plant magic to be useless trash. He then reveals that the kind-hearted Lady Gabriella was the one who persuaded the professor to confess everything, and in that moment, Chloe's world shatters as she understands the professor has betrayed her. In a painful memory, Chloe recalls her family's disdain. Her father, mother, and younger brother Askell look down on her, calling her a disgrace to the Morgan family name. They are sickened to share the same blood because she cannot use their family's esteemed fire magic. Chloe remembers how they never truly treated her like family, a stark contrast to a promise she once shared with Professor Sutherland to create a world where even people with rare magic could live freely. Back in her dark prison cell, Prince Dominique reveals the cold truth to a defeated Chloe. He explains they had long suspected the professor was a spy from a neighboring country and had simply let him continue his activities to use him. The prince cruelly calls her stupid for willingly joining the professor and mockingly says that even useless people can be helpful once in a while. Chloe reflects on her desperate desire for love and acknowledgement, how she had worked tirelessly for the professor and the world, hoping it would earn her the affection of the prince and her family. Now, covered in blood and grime, she understands she was nothing more than a pawn and lets out a bitter laugh at how foolish she had been. Lying on the cold stone floor of her cell, Chloe laughs hysterically, her spirit broken, as she makes a solemn vow to never trust anyone ever again. Suddenly her world shifts, and she opens her eyes to find she is no longer in a prison cell. She has become a small child again. Confusion floods her mind as she remembers dying at the age of 18, yet here she is, back in her 5-year-old body. It makes no sense to her at all. Chloe quickly realizes that time itself has somehow reversed, as all her memories from her previous life remain perfectly intact. She finds herself on the pivotal day of her magic aptitude test. As Chloe Morgan, the daughter of a marquis, everyone expects her to possess one of the 4 great magics revered in the kingdom of Liard, most likely the powerful fire magic of her family line. She obediently places her small hand upon the glowing appraisal stone. The kingdom worships 4 great magics: fire, water, wind, and earth. Those born with these abilities are hailed as chosen ones, capable of growing powerful enough to destroy entire nations. In contrast, individuals with rarer, less conventional magic are ostracized and looked down upon by society. The appraisal stone shines, but the result is not what anyone expected. The officials are stunned to see that Chloe's aptitude is for plant magic. In disbelief, they demand she cast a spell out the window to prove it, knowing the appraisal stone is never wrong. As young Chloe channels her power, a massive burst of thorny vines and plants erupts from the window, showcasing her innate ability. Her father looks on with pure disgust, calling her pathetic. He turns his rage on his wife, Ellie, furiously accusing her of being unfaithful and lying about Chloe being his child. As her mother pleads her innocence, he strikes her across the face, sending her to the floor while a terrified Chloe watches the beginning of her family's collapse. With the memories of her past life fresh in her mind, Chloe understands that this moment was the turning point. It was after her miserable plant magic was revealed that her parents' love turned to cruelty. They began to ignore her completely, a treatment that was soon adopted by the household servants as well. In stark contrast, her younger brother Askell, who was born 2 years later and blessed with their family's fire magic, was cherished and treated like a priceless treasure. Her painful memories continue to flood back. At the age of 8, she was engaged to the second prince, Dominique Liard. In a desperate attempt to win back her parents' love and prove her worth to her family, she devoted herself to her studies and worked harder than anyone else. At the time, she was just happy that the engagement made her father finally look at her again. While some whispered it was a political move to strengthen ties with the powerful Morgan family, Chloe held onto the hope that the charming Prince Dominique would be her savior. At 14, she eagerly enrolled in the Royal Liard High School alongside the prince, full of excitement for a new life as his fiancée, but her hopes were soon crushed. Her time at school was a nightmare. Word quickly spread that she was a plant magic user, and she became the target of constant ridicule. When she confided in the prince, he simply laughed at her for being unable to make friends. Making matters worse, he began to grow closer to another girl, leaving Chloe feeling even more isolated. That girl was Lady Gabriella, the daughter of a count, who possessed an immense capacity for fire magic. She was praised by everyone, and soon Chloe's own brother joined the others in comparing her unfavorably to Gabriella. Prince Dominique was completely captivated by the fiery noblewoman, having eyes for no one else. Yet Chloe still clung to the fragile hope that as his fiancée, he would one day see her and love her. It was during this lonely time that she met Professor Peter Sutherland. He was the very first person to ever truly accept her and her magic. He validated her feelings, telling her that the world was wrong for devaluing her talents. He spoke of creating a new world, a better one for gifted people like her, suggesting that those with outdated views needed to be silenced. He manipulated her desperation, convincing her that if she used her plant magic to create a perfect, untraceable poison, the prince and her family would finally recognize her true worth. Tragically, she believed him, and this path led only to her lonely, miserable death in prison. Back in her childhood room, Chloe firmly rejects that fate. She no longer cares why time rewound, she only knows she will not go through that painful life again. She resolves to live differently and avoid making the same mistakes, a wave of determination washing over her. As she vows to live for herself, relying on the very grass magic that everyone once scorned, she feels an incredible power coursing through her. She realizes with a jolt that while her body is that of a child, her magic level was not reset. A wide grin spreads across her face as she understands she is still at level 100, the maximum possible level. With newfound resolve shining in her eyes, Chloe decides she will live for herself this time, no longer clinging to the false hopes of being understood or loved by those who betrayed her. Just as she makes this silent promise, a soft knock sounds at her door. A maid enters, asking if she is awake. Chloe recognizes her as Maria and remembers how the kind nanny had always worried about her. Chloe's mind flashes back to her first life, recalling that Maria was her nanny. She remembers with a pang of guilt that her father had fired Maria for defending her. In her obsessive quest for love from her family, she had forgotten the one person who had shown her genuine kindness. Although she just vowed to live for herself, she now feels a strong desire to protect Maria at all costs. Speaking with a maturity that startles the nanny, Chloe warns Maria not to argue with her father on her behalf. She explains that if Maria does, she will be thrown out of the house just as Chloe will be. Chloe tells her she has accepted that her father has given up on her and that her time in this house is limited. She asks Maria to simply help her live quietly until the day she leaves. Maria sadly agrees, and Chloe immediately tells her there is a favor she needs to ask. Chloe requests the family tree, surprising Maria, who didn't know the young lady could write. Chloe explains that she practiced in secret. In her thoughts, Chloe knows that as a 5-year-old she cannot survive alone, so she needs to find a relative to take her in, preferably someone who doesn't use fire magic. She carefully scans the intricate chart and finds a suitable candidate who is related more closely than she had anticipated. She begins to write a letter, determined to explain her entire situation and her hopes for the future with complete honesty. After finishing the letter, Chloe shows it to Maria for her approval. The nanny is astonished, remarking that it reads like it was written by a well-educated adult. Relieved, Chloe asks Maria to send the letter for her, and Maria promises to take care of it immediately. Later that night, Chloe is seen sleeping peacefully in her bed, the first step of her new plan set in motion. Once she is alone, the weight of her reality crashes down on her. Curled up in her bed, Chloe begins to cry, overwhelmed by the deep-seated pain of being abandoned by her own parents, a wound that feels just as fresh in this life as it did in the last. Knowing it will take some time for her letter to arrive and for a reply to be sent, Chloe decides to begin her preparations for leaving the house. Her plan is to take anything of value that can be sold for money later. She activates her magic room, a special spatial magic that creates an invisible storage dimension that only she can access. As she gathers items, she reflects on how she pointlessly trained in all magic types in her past life just to gain her parents' approval, even though her affinity for fire magic was always pathetically weak. Maria quietly brings Chloe a small meal, apologizing that it was all she could sneak away. Chloe thanks her warmly, remembering the times in her first life when no one brought her food, forcing her to eat rotten scraps to survive. Maria gently warns her not to take too many items from her room, as the other servants might become suspicious. With surprising insight, Chloe correctly guesses that her father is away on business and her mother is sleeping late after a party, leaving Maria impressed by her young lady's sharp perception. Wanting to avoid drawing attention, Chloe decides against a large magic experiment and instead goes for a walk in the garden. As she strolls through the greenery, she realizes all the vast botanical knowledge she acquired in her first life remains with her. She can identify every plant and its properties, from the medicinal Julie leaf used to treat bronchitis to the poisonous roots and seeds of the Venus violet. Her expert eye then falls upon a flower bed, and she immediately notices that the plants look weak and unhealthy. As Chloe leans in to inspect the wilting flowers, she is startled by a small, timid child who has appeared behind her. The little girl, who looks incredibly sad, offers a shy apology. Just then, Maria calls out in surprise from a distance. Chloe turns around, her eyes widening as she wonders who this mysterious child could possibly be. In the mansion's garden, Chloe is met by a small, shy girl who introduces herself as Lulu, the gardener's daughter. Lulu, who is in charge of a particular flower bed, looks worried and apologetically explains that the flowers are not looking very good, fearing that Chloe might be angry. Remembering she is supposed to be a child, Chloe softens her voice and kindly reassures Lulu that she is not mad at all, which brings a wave of relief to the little girl's face. Lulu confesses that she had proudly told her father she would care for the flower bed all by herself, but the flowers stubbornly refused to bloom properly. She even splurged on very good fertilizer, but nothing seemed to work. With the knowledge from her past life, Chloe gently explains that the problem is that too many seeds were planted too closely together and that too much fertilizer was used. She tells Lulu that the flowers are saying they're too crowded and it hurts, suggesting that thinning them out would help. Lulu hesitates, feeling that it would be wasteful to pull out the small plants. Impressed by Chloe's knowledge, Lulu asks what kind of magic she uses, assuming she must be a fire magic user like the rest of the esteemed Morgan family. Chloe calmly states that she is not a fire mage and asks if she could have one of the nearby white roses, a request Lulu happily grants. Chloe holds the delicate white rose to her lips and channels her power, causing the petals to transform into a stunning shade of blue right before Lulu's astonished eyes. She then reveals her secret, stating that she uses plant magic. As Lulu stares in shock, painful memories of being called a loser with useless magic flash through Chloe's mind. Her expression saddens, and she immediately apologizes to Lulu, assuming that this revelation will make the other girl hate her. But to Chloe's utter amazement, Lulu's face lights up with excitement instead of disgust. The young gardener's daughter exclaims that plant magic is an amazing and cool power, the absolute dream magic for someone who tends to flowers. She marvels at the beautiful blue rose and declares that she loves plant magic, words that bring tears to Chloe's eyes as she realizes no one has ever praised her ability before. In that moment, Chloe reflects on how she has always secretly loved her plant magic, the very power that supported her through the hardest times, even as others relentlessly made fun of her for it. In Lulu's genuine admiration, Chloe finds her very first true friend. A week passes after the aptitude test, and while her parents have resumed ignoring her as if she doesn't exist, Chloe's life is no longer lonely, because now she has Lulu. When Chloe next visits the garden, the flower bed is thriving and looks incredibly healthy. Lulu gratefully thanks Chloe for her advice, admitting that she stopped being stubborn and asked her father and grandfather for help. Chloe smiles, praising Lulu for her maturity. Lulu then mentions that her grandfather has heard about Chloe and would like to meet her, inviting her to the gardener's shed. Chloe thinks about how warm and kind Lulu's family must be, a stark contrast to her own. Lulu excitedly runs into the gardener's shed, shouting a greeting to her grandpa, while Chloe follows nervously behind, feeling anxious about suddenly meeting a new adult. An elderly man with a large, kind face and a bushy white mustache greets them warmly. The man introduces himself as Tom, the head gardener, and presents his son, Kenny. He explains that their family has been responsible for the mansion's gardens for a long time. Chloe politely thanks them for their hard work, and Tom remarks on how maturely she speaks for her age. He then surprises Chloe by revealing that he knows about the rumors, that she is a plant magic user and is being treated unfairly by her family because of it. Tom lets out a hearty laugh and declares that for a family of gardeners, having plant magic is like winning the lottery. He then leans in with a twinkle in his eye and reveals his own secret. He is also a plant magic user, which makes the two of them comrades. Chloe is completely stunned. In her entire first life, she never met another person with plant magic, and to find one so close has left her speechless. Tom points to the blue rose Chloe had gifted Lulu, which now sits in a vase, and correctly deduces that she used a color-shifting ability on it, a skill one learns at level 30. He praises her immense determination, saying she must have worked incredibly hard to reach such a high level at her age. Overcome with emotion at finally being understood, Chloe runs forward and gives the old man a tight hug. Tom is touched, remarking that in all his 80 years, this is the first time he has ever met a fellow plant magic user. As they all sit for tea, Chloe shyly says she isn't really a princess, but Tom smiles and tells her that to him, she is something special. Tom explains that once a magic user's level is high enough, they can sense the power of others, revealing that his own plant magic is at level 80. He then asks Chloe what her level is. After a moment of hesitation, Chloe decides she cannot lie to the first person she has ever been able to share this with. She quietly admits her level is 100, the absolute maximum. Tom and his family are left speechless, with Tom realizing that her power is a testament to how much she must truly love her magic and how hard she must have worked for it. Deeply moved, Tom looks at Chloe and says that he has been waiting his whole life for someone to whom he could pass on his knowledge of plant magic. Chloe is shocked and thrilled by his offer to teach her, realizing that his experience could help her grow even stronger than she was in her past life. For a fleeting moment, however, the betrayals of her past creep into her mind, and she wonders if she can truly bring herself to trust him. Chloe is haunted by the memory of everyone she has ever trusted abandoning her. She fears that if Tom, her first potential ally, also betrays her, her heart might truly break for good. But looking at the kind old man, she knows she cannot miss this chance. Pushing her fear aside, she decides to believe in him and passionately pleads for him to become her teacher. Tom agrees, but with a condition of his own. He asks her to enter into a true master-apprentice contract. He explains that this is a magical, unbreakable bond that prevents either person from ever betraying the other. While the apprentice must devote their life to their master, they will also eventually inherit all of the master's stats and knowledge. Tom cautions her that such a contract is a serious commitment, especially between a noble lady and a servant. But Chloe sees it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to gain the power she needs. She declares that as the unwanted child of her family, she must leave this house someday, and she accepts his terms without hesitation. Chloe reflects that she never had a firm, unbreakable bond in her first life, but this time, she will finally gain one. With his family as witnesses, Tom formally names Chloe Morgan his one and only apprentice, vowing to pass on everything he knows. In turn, Chloe swears by her blood to serve and respect Lord Tom as her master for the rest of her life. As they clasp hands, a brilliant light envelopes them, and a beautiful floral emblem appears on the back of each of their hands, sealing the contract. Tom notes that her emblem is a lily of the valley, remarking that he even likes its poisonous side, while Chloe sees that his is a daisy, a humble but strong flower. A wave of guilt washes over Chloe as she realizes her own suspicion is what led her to bind this kind man to her with a magical contract. She tells Tom her dream is to become an herbalist so she can live independently. From that day forward, she dedicates herself completely to learning everything she can from her new master. During one of their lessons, Tom quizzes her by holding up an herb. Chloe instantly identifies it as zearing grass, which is used to ease stomachaches. Tom then instructs her to create a stomach medicine from it. Chloe skillfully uses her magic to dry and grind the herbs before moving on to the next step. She then astonishes Tom by conjuring a sphere of water magic, which she expertly uses to extract the plant's essence, mix the components, and finally solidify the concoction into perfect little pills. Tom is amazed, admitting he never knew she could use water magic. He praises the final medicine as incredible, giving it a score of 200 out of 100 for its quality. However, Tom then explains that while the medicine's quality is perfect, it is a complete failure as a commercial product. He tells her that she used ingredients that were too potent and infused it with too much magic, making it so expensive that it would sell for 3 times the price of normal medicine. A good herbalist, he teaches her, must make medicine that is both effective and affordable. Chloe realizes she still has so much more to learn about the practical side of her craft. A full year passes without any reply to the letter she sent to her relatives. Chloe begins to lose hope, fearing that the letter was lost or intentionally ignored. She knows she must make a plan to leave this house before she is once again engaged to Prince Dominic, a fate that would trap her in the country. Just as she is lost in these worried thoughts, her nanny Maria enters the room with urgent news. Chloe's father, the master of the house, is summoning her. Chloe stands before her father, the man who has not spoken a word to her in years. He looks down at her with a cold, indifferent expression and delivers a shocking announcement. He tells her to rejoice, for she has been chosen as the fiancée for the second prince, Dominic Leald. Chloe is horrified, her mind reeling as she realizes with dread that this terrible fate has arrived far sooner than it did in her first life. The shocking news of her engagement to Prince Dominic hangs in the air, and Chloe remembers that in her first life, this happened when she was 8, making this development terrifyingly premature. Her father coldly reveals that he knows she has been secretly learning plant magic from the gardener, Tom, because he had her watched the entire time. He declares that he can no longer be bothered to take care of her. Chloe is horrified, realizing that even though her father neglected her to the point of starvation, he still had a spy monitoring her every move. The cruelty deepens as her father explains they have already lied to the royal family, claiming her aptitude is for fire magic. The weight of this deception crushes Chloe as she understands her entire family would be punished if the truth were ever discovered. With a chilling lack of emotion, her father warns her to hide her plant magic forever if she wants to avoid being executed for perjury. As Chloe tries to protest, her mother, Ellie, strikes her across the face, ordering her not to talk back. Chloe's father lets out a cruel laugh, assuring her that her official records have already been falsified to show she is a fire magic user. All she must do, he says, is refrain from ever using her pathetic plant magic within the walls of the royal palace. In that moment, Chloe understands the depths of their corruption. They must have bribed the priest who performed her magic appraisal. Her mother then erupts in a rage, screaming that Chloe must be learning plant magic from a common gardener just to spite her for being born with such a useless ability. Chloe sees her parents for the monsters they are, people who never raised her yet used her as a pawn for a political marriage. She vividly recalls how, in her first life, they abandoned her to die in prison, claiming a failure like her deserved it. A newfound strength rises within her, and Chloe looks her parents in the eye. She declares firmly that she will not be engaged to the prince and she will not remain in their house a moment longer. She explains that she has been learning plant magic with the goal of becoming an herbalist and living a life true to herself. Her father scoffs at the idea of a marquis's daughter wanting a commoner's job. Fueled by fury, Chloe's mother raises her hand to strike her again, shrieking about how much Chloe is disrespecting and mocking her parents. But before the blow can land, a powerful hand firmly grasps her mother's wrist, stopping her mid-swing. A formidable elderly man has entered the room, much to the shock of Chloe's parents. Her mother gasps his name, Father. He is Chloe's maternal grandfather, and the household servants apologize profusely for being unable to stop his unannounced visit. Chloe's father greets his father-in-law with barely concealed contempt, but the old man dismisses him, stating he has no business with him and has come for only one purpose. He is Lord Richard Rosenvok, the esteemed Margrave of the Borderlands, and he has come to take his granddaughter, Chloe, back with him. A wave of pure joy washes over Chloe as she realizes the desperate letter she sent a year ago had reached him after all. A memory of the letter shows her heartfelt plea to be taken away from the abusive household. Now, in the present, Richard confronts his daughter and son-in-law, revealing that an informant had told him of Chloe's abuse. Having come to see the truth for himself, he lists their crimes. They starve her, force her to lie, engage her without consent, and are violent towards her. When Chloe's father tries to make an excuse, Richard slams his fist on the desk with enough force to crack it, threatening to kill him if he utters another word. Richard then produces an official adoption document. Since they clearly do not want Chloe, he declares that he will take her as his own adopted child to live with him in Rosenvok. Chloe's father explodes with rage, screaming that he is her parent and has the sole right to decide her future. Richard's voice booms through the room as he silences him with a single, powerful command: "Shut up." With unwavering authority, Richard declares that Chloe's future belongs to her alone, and she will be the one to decide it. He presents Chloe's father with an ultimatum: sign the adoption papers and break the engagement, or Richard will expose the fraudulent magic declaration to the royal family, a crime that would surely ruin the Morgan house. Cornered and defeated, Chloe's father begrudgingly signs the document. With the paperwork finalized and confirmed by Richard's aide, Chloe is now officially a member of the Rosenvok household. Richard warns his son-in-law against any further foolishness before gently taking Chloe's hand. As he leads her away, she feels the comforting warmth from his calloused hand and breathes in the faint, earthy scent of dry fields. Before leaving, Richard turns to his own daughter, Ellie, and coldly banishes her from his sight forever. As Chloe walks out, she is met by the tearful but joyful faces of the maids. Her nanny, Maria, holds her hands one last time, promising that no matter where she goes, she will always pray for her happiness. As she leaves the mansion behind, Chloe thinks of all the people she is leaving. She thinks of Maria, who cared for her like a mother, and of her friends, old Tom, Lulu, and Kenny, whom she never had the chance to say goodbye to. In her heart, she vows that she will see them all again someday. Riding on horseback with her grandfather, Chloe learns why it took him a year to arrive. His domain had been plagued by border skirmishes, keeping him away from home and unaware of her letter. Richard gently teases her for writing such a mature letter only to act like a small child now. He tells her their journey will take them all the way to Rosenvok, his territory on the harsh but beautiful western edge of the kingdom, a land of magic beasts and constant conflict. Pointing toward the distant horizon, he tells her that this land will be her new home, and she will now be known as Chloe Rosenvok. Their journey is abruptly interrupted when Richard's men, Jude and Gauche, announce the arrival of pursuers, just as they had anticipated. Jude reports there are 8 riders in total. Without missing a beat, Richard asks Chloe if she can use her magic to bind their group together with grass, preparing for the impending fight. As her magic takes hold, Chloe realizes with a chilling horror that the pursuers are from the Morgan family, sent by her own father. They have been sent to kill both her and her grandfather. Richard's men immediately react, using their wood magic to conjure a dense thicket to provide cover as they prepare to fight back. Chloe watches in awe as her grandfather fights with the strength and ferocity of a true warrior, and she understands that this is what it means to be a Margrave, a protector of the borderlands. She had hoped her grandfather wouldn't look down on her for her magic, but she never could have imagined he was this powerful. After the swift battle, Chloe overhears one of her grandfather's men worrying about the use of force, but she quickly speaks up, insisting that he only fought to protect her. She formally addresses her grandfather as "my lord," and gratefully vows to train her plant magic to serve him and his domain as repayment for saving her life. Richard looks at her and asks if she isn't afraid of him now. She replies that she cannot imagine anyone more terrifying than her own parents, who had just tried to have her killed. A warm smile spreads across his face, and he tells her to drop the formal titles and simply call him Grandpa. Later, as the group rests, Richard's adjutant, a man named Hawk, introduces himself and offers Chloe a piece of soft, warm, freshly baked bread. Her grandfather gently encourages her to eat, chiding his men for asking a starving child if she is hungry. The moment Chloe takes a bite, the simple, delicious taste overwhelms her senses, and tears begin to stream down her cheeks. Hawk, concerned, asks if her cheek still hurts from her mother's slap, but she shakes her head. A turbulent mix of sadness, happiness, and profound relief washes over her, and she finds that she cannot stop crying. Richard gently pulls her into a comforting embrace, reassuring her that everything is okay now. He softly tells his granddaughter that she is finally safe and no one will ever harm her again. He speaks of his daughter, Ellie, who fled the frontier she hated only to let her life rot away in the capital. He acknowledges that Chloe's young life has been a living hell, and that she has been trying so hard all on her own for far too long. That night, as Chloe sleeps peacefully, Richard has a serious conversation with a young, blonde-haired man. He tells him that while he doesn't plan on dying anytime soon, if anything were to ever happen to him, it is the young man's duty to protect Chloe. He must protect her, not only as the next lord, but as her older brother. The young man gazes at the sleeping girl and solemnly accepts his charge. On their journey, Chloe's grandfather, Richard, announces they have reached a town allied with their domain of Rosenberg, where they will rest and do some shopping. He introduces the young man, Jude, as his other grandchild and instructs both of them to get along, as they will be living together in the estate. He then tasks Jude with a special mission, to take Chloe shopping and ensure she gets everything a young girl could possibly need. As Jude and Chloe walk through the lively town market, with its colorful stalls of fruit and clothing, a heavy silence hangs between them. Chloe worries that Jude must dislike her for suddenly appearing and becoming a part of his family. Trying to break the silence, she asks if he is her cousin, but Jude explains that he is not related by blood, he is the Lord's adopted son, taken in as a baby. Chloe quickly realizes this means Jude is destined to be the next lord of the domain. Jude tells Chloe to stop addressing him so formally, saying it feels strange to use such language with family. Overjoyed by his words, Chloe decides to call him Big Brother, but in her excitement, she stumbles over the words, calling him Big Bro instead. To her surprise and delight, a warm laugh escapes him, and though she is embarrassed, his smile fills her with happiness. Feeling more comfortable, Chloe insists that if they are family he should stop calling her Lady Chloe, and just use her name. Jude agrees, and they enter a clothing shop where the owner greets them, mistaking them for a brother and sister out shopping. Jude explains their first priority is buying clothes, as Chloe only owns the single dress she is wearing. Chloe quietly confirms that it's the only outfit she has had for a year, one that her dear nanny Maria had to wash for her every single day. Without hesitation, Jude instructs the shopkeeper to provide a complete wardrobe for Chloe, from her underthings all the way to a new pair of boots. Chloe emerges from the fitting room in a beautiful new outfit, complete with a charming cape that suits her perfectly. Jude and the shopkeeper both agree she looks wonderful, and Jude decides to buy not only that set but 2 more in a larger size, thoughtfully planning for when she grows. Chloe is stunned by his immense generosity. Jude encourages her to pick out anything else she might want, knowing the mansion is not equipped for a little girl. Her first choice is a practical one, a mortar and pestle for grinding herbs. When he sees her gazing longingly at a candy display, he kindly offers to buy her some sweets, noting how strange it is to see her acting so shy. Chloe bashfully explains that she hasn't eaten sweets in over a year and was only staring. In response, Jude buys a massive bag filled to the brim with cookies and candies and tells her to eat them all. Chloe is overwhelmed, thinking about how long it has been since she was able to relax with a simple treat, a small joy she was always denied in her lonely past. Sitting together on a town bench, Jude initially tells Chloe she can have all the sweets for herself. But Chloe offers him a cookie, explaining that she believes they will taste much better and make her happier if they enjoy them together, because they are family now. After a moment of internal conflict, where he chides himself for feeling jealous of a small child, Jude takes the cookie and agrees with a smile that it is delicious. As they share the sweets, Jude asks Chloe about her plans for the future. She tells him she wants to become an apothecary to use her grass magic to help him and their grandfather, with the ultimate goal of becoming independent. She explains that she doesn't want to stay in Rosenvok forever, fearing her presence would cause trouble for her grandfather with the Morgan family. She dreams of one day seeing the world and experiencing everything it has to offer. Inspired by her adventurous spirit, Jude muses that perhaps he too could travel and study abroad while his grandfather is still healthy. Chloe then reminds him that he shouldn't call their grandfather Lord, as Richard had scolded him for it just the day before. They share a laugh and agree to practice calling him grandfather together. That evening at the inn, Jude notices Chloe's cheek is still swollen from her mother's slap. He uses his ice magic to create a soothingly cold compress for her. Chloe is fascinated, realizing he is an ice magic user and thinking how useful his ability would be for preserving medicinal herbs. As she drifts off to sleep, feeling cared for, Jude wishes her a good night. A few weeks later, they finally arrive at the grand estate in Rosenvok. Chloe finds that her new life is quite different from what she had imagined. Instead of quietly supporting her new family from the shadows, she has become their official wake-up call. Her mornings are now spent energetically pulling the blankets off a groggy grandfather, reminding him of his meetings, and tackling a sleepy Jude to get him to his etiquette lessons. Both Richard and Jude grumble about how loud and strong-willed she has become, jokingly blaming each other for it. The servants, led by Hawk, confess to Chloe that her new role is a blessing, as she is the only one who can rouse the 2 lazy lords from their slumber. They even promise to go on strike if she ever gets in trouble for it, leading Chloe to wonder if this was all a clever plan to help her fit in. Chloe reflects on her new family. Her grandfather had made it clear from her first day that Jude was his heir, a decisive statement that prevented any potential conflict over inheritance her arrival might have caused. Jude himself had assured her he never intended to take her place. All Chloe truly wants is to live a quiet, peaceful life. This peace is shattered when a commotion erupts at the mansion. A beaten and exhausted Maria has arrived, having been punished for helping Chloe send the letter to her grandfather. She was thrown out of the Morgan mansion and traveled all this way on her own. Jude is furious, demanding to know if Chloe's father was responsible. Chloe is consumed with guilt, crying that it is all her fault, but Maria weakly reassures her that she helped because she wanted to. Chloe insists on nursing her beloved nanny back to health herself. She prepares a medicine, but in her haste and inexperience, she forgets to consider the taste, and Maria immediately coughs up the bitter concoction. Despite this, Maria smiles lovingly, honored to be Chloe's very first patient. Richard agrees to let Maria stay at the estate as Chloe's personal lady's maid, explaining that Maria has nowhere else to go, as her own family had treated her cruelly after a personal tragedy. Chloe's heart aches for her nanny, who showed her so much kindness even while grieving her own loss. She then expresses her fear that Tom and his family might also be punished by her father. The estate's butler, a kind man named Byrne, overhears her worries and offers an elegant solution, an old grass magic technique known as dandelion letters. He explains that this magic can disguise a written message as dandelion seeds, which can then be turned back into a letter by another grass magic user. Thrilled by this new knowledge, Chloe immediately creates a dandelion letter for her friends. A few days later, a reply arrives in a flurry of dandelion seeds. The message is from Tom, assuring her that he, Lulu, and Kenny are all doing well and urging her to stay healthy too. An image of their smiling faces appears before her, and Chloe is overcome with tears of relief. Jude sits with her in a field of flowers, comforting her as she cries, finally at peace knowing her friends are safe 6 months after her arrival in Rosenvok. Chloe learns from her grandfather, Richard, that a mysterious dungeon has appeared in the northern port town of Totori. He explains that dungeons are strange distortions in space and time that can hold both fabulous treasures and powerful creatures, and they have a habit of appearing and disappearing without warning. Chloe excitedly asks if a dungeon might even contain a creature from legends, like a dragon. Jude wonders if dragons are actually real, and both Chloe and her grandfather admit they have never seen one. Richard decides this is the perfect opportunity for Jude's training as the future lord and sends him to investigate the dungeon. Chloe, worried for her brother's safety, is told to stay behind and hold down the fort. The mention of a port town sparks Chloe's excitement, as she has only ever read about the sea and seafood. The thought of seeing the ocean and gathering seaweed for the first time in either of her lives is too much to resist. She passionately begs Jude to take her along, promising to work hard, be on her best behavior, and even learn any new magic that might be required for the trip. Seeing her enthusiasm, her grandfather agrees to let her go, noting that the dungeon hasn't been reported as dangerous and that the trip will be a good learning experience for her. He entrusts Chloe's safety to Jude, telling him that protecting others is the most important and difficult part of being a leader. Jude solemnly accepts this great responsibility, vowing to protect his new sister with his life. In the days leading up to their journey, Chloe dedicates herself to her studies, learning to sew from Maria and completing assignments from her old teacher, Tom, which he sends via dandelion letters. When the day of departure finally arrives, Chloe and Jude wave goodbye, though Jude seems less than thrilled to see that Hawk and another man named Nietzsche are tagging along. Along the way, Hawk introduces Nietzsche as a young master of water magic, explaining that both Jude and Chloe are considered treasures of Rosenvok and require protection. As they travel through their own territory, Chloe feels a sense of freedom she's never known before, comfortable enough to ask them to stop whenever she sees an interesting plant. She excitedly points out new discoveries, from aquatic plants in a swamp to a maple tree whose sap can be used to make potions. The group happily obliges her requests, stopping to collect the sap while remarking on how much they've come to rely on her potions. Chloe basks in the warmth of their acceptance, happy that she is no longer ignored or blamed for her curiosities. When they finally arrive at the port town of Totori, Chloe is completely mesmerized by the sight of the ocean, exclaiming how wide and sparkling it is. To avoid the hassle of an official inspection, Hawk creates a cover story for their visit. He will pose as Chloe's father, with Jude as her older brother and Nietzsche as their attendant. Chloe plays her part with gusto, cheerfully calling Hawk Daddy, a word that melts his heart. She then declares that she wants to try shrimp, a delicacy she's never tasted. As they walk through the town, however, they are drawn to a commotion near the cliffs. They learn that a dungeon has formed in a cliffside cave, and the discovery of gold near its entrance has thrown the town into chaos, with thugs now fighting over the treasure. The local deputy governor, Marco, tries to intervene but is roughly pushed aside by the brawlers. Hawk steps in, and Marco immediately recognizes him as Sir Hawk Zilny, the deputy to the Lord of Rosenvok. Announcing he is there to inspect the dungeon, Hawk declares it closed by order of the Lord until a proper investigation can be completed. When the thugs defy the order, Hawk signals Chloe, who uses her powerful grass magic to instantly bind the men in vines and seal the dungeon's entrance with a wall of plants. One man attempts to burn the vines with fire magic, but Jude swiftly extinguishes the flame with a precise water ball, freezing the man's hand. Realizing they are outmatched, the thugs back down. That evening at the inn, the group enjoys a magnificent seafood feast. Chloe savors every bite, delighted by the new flavors she has only ever read about in books. As they plan their dungeon exploration for the next day, Hawk asks to use Chloe's space magic to store 3 days' worth of food, and she happily agrees. Trying to prove her usefulness, Chloe outlines a detailed emergency plan, which includes using her vines for a quick escape and, as a last resort, creating a protective cocoon for herself to wait for rescue. She then hesitantly asks if they are testing her to see if she'll just be in the way. Her suggestion that she would be left behind alone infuriates Jude, who yells that they would never, ever abandon her. The outburst leaves Chloe stunned and heartbroken, fearing she has made her brother hate her. Later that night, Jude comes to her room and apologizes for shouting, but gently explains that she was wrong to even think they would leave her. He tells her she tries too hard to be helpful and reassures her that they would care for her even if she wasn't useful at all. Overwhelmed by his kindness, Chloe bursts into tears, begging him not to hate her and telling him how much she loves him. Jude pulls her into a warm hug, affectionately calling her a smart idiot and promising that he could never hate her. He confesses that she gave him a sense of belonging and the role of big brother when he needed it most. Chloe reflects that in just 6 short months, her life has become 100 times happier than her previous one ever was. The next day, the group enters the dungeon, using Chloe's vines for easy access. The entrance appears to be an ordinary cave, with all the surface-level gold already mined out. As they venture deeper, a pack of menacing wolves suddenly appears. Determined to protect her brother, Chloe erects a massive grass wall, but the wolves vanish as if they were nothing but an illusion. Hawk senses that something is wrong, as if an outside force is interfering with them. Just then, the ground beneath them gives way, and Chloe and Jude are sent plunging into a dark abyss. Thinking fast, Chloe uses her growth magic to create a thick cushion of vines, softening their landing. Though bruised, they are safe thanks to her quick actions. As their eyes adjust to the darkness, they realize they are not alone. Before them lies a colossal dragon, its massive body covered in strange dark patches and trapped within a cage of vines that seem to have grown from its own back. In the dark depths of the dungeon, Chloe and Jude stare in disbelief at the colossal creature before them, a real dragon. Jude instinctively pulls Chloe behind him for protection, but she quickly notices that the massive beast is covered in wounds. The dragon speaks with a calm, ancient voice, assuring them that it means no harm and only wishes to talk. It reveals that it was the one who created the dungeon in the first place. The dragon explains that it has been waiting for a person with great magical power, and that person is Chloe. Jude immediately becomes defensive, warning the dragon that he will not forgive any harm that comes to his little sister. Ignoring his threat, the dragon gently presents a large, ornate egg. It explains that its life is ending and that before dragons die, they pour all their knowledge and memories into an egg that cannot hatch on its own. It asks Chloe to become the egg's magical parent by infusing it with her magic to help it hatch. Chloe learns that if she refuses, the egg will simply rot away with its parent. The dragon, who has protected the surrounding land from monsters and storms for 100 years, warns that its death will leave the region vulnerable. However, if the egg hatches, its child will inherit its memories and continue its role as guardian. Chloe expresses her doubts, worried that her plant-based magic isn't strong enough. The dragon dismisses her concerns, stating that the type of magic is irrelevant. What matters is that she has a good heart and a strong will. Then, the dragon says something that stops Chloe's heart. It tells her that if she keeps the baby dragon by her side, she can avoid the tragic death she experienced in her previous life, as dragons never betray their magical parent. Stunned that the creature knows her deepest secret, Chloe desperately asks why she is living her life over again. The dragon admits it does not know the reason but can see the remnants of time-twisting magic and a sad final memory clinging to her soul. This revelation solidifies her resolve, and Chloe accepts her new role, hoping this path might one day lead her to the truth. Chloe asks her brother if he will help her raise the dragon, and he tearfully promises to support her, vowing to protect both her and their land. As Chloe and Jude both place their hands on the egg, a brilliant light erupts, and they feel a powerful magical force pulling them in. The egg's shell transforms, turning a vibrant green and developing intricate ice blue patterns, a fusion of Chloe's and Jude's magic. As the dying dragon's body begins to fade, Chloe asks for its name. The dragon reveals its name is Gaia, a name it hasn't heard in hundreds of years. Holding the egg, Chloe promises Gaia that she will raise its child well, and with a final, whispered, "Thank you," the ancient guardian disappears. A week later at the Rosenvok estate, Richard learns that with Gaia's disappearance, the dungeon and the chaos in Tori vanished as well. Chloe explains that although she gives the egg magic every day, nothing has happened since its initial transformation. Her grandfather decides they must honor Gaia's legacy as the land's protector with a ceremony at the temple. At the temple's orphanage, Chloe is warmly greeted by the children she often helps in the garden. The high priest, Dorma, recognizes the egg and senses a dragon's blessing on both Chloe and Jude. A magic appraisal reveals the truth. Chloe's grass magic has broken the level cap and is now at 104, and both she and Jude have gained a new affinity for earth magic, a gift from the dragon. Dorma, loyal to Rosenvok and distrustful of the corrupt central authorities, agrees to keep their new power a secret and performs a blessing for Gaia, the children, and the unhatched egg. 2 years pass peacefully. Chloe, now 8, and Jude, 13, diligently pour their magic into the egg every day. Chloe rediscovers that pushing her magic to its limit increases her overall capacity, a training method from her past life. Just as she begins to joke that the egg is just a shiny rock, cracks suddenly appear on its surface. A small, adorable baby dragon with emerald scales and ice-blue eyes emerges, happily thanking Chloe and Jude for its birth. It explains it could hear their voices from inside the egg and that its name is to be given by its magical parent. Chloe bestows upon it the name Emil, which the little dragon loves. Meanwhile, back at the Morgan estate, Gardener Tom is ominously summoned by his master. In a flashback to her early days in Rosenvok, Chloe was desperate to prove her worth. She demonstrated her incredible power by creating a massive, durable grass wall and then a magical well that tapped into an underground water vein. Worried she would be thrown away if she wasn't useful, she asked her grandfather if she could stay. In response, Richard simply asked her to make her favorite flower bloom. She created a field of chamomile and clover, and he told her that her ability was clear. He freed her from the need to meet expectations, telling her to live and grow her power however she wished. Overcome with emotion, Chloe cried with happiness, finally feeling safe enough to just be a child. Her grandfather comforted her, placing a flower crown on her head and telling her, "No more crying." With the baby dragon finally born, Chloe's grandfather, Richard, and the rest of the household look on in wonder at the new guardian deity of Rosenvok. When asked for its name, Chloe proudly holds up the small creature and introduces him as Emil. Richard explains that Emil's emerald color is likely a result of inheriting qualities from both Chloe's plant magic and Jude's ice magic. Jude, eager to hold the dragon, snatches Emil from Chloe but is immediately struck by a sudden drain of his magic. Chloe explains that this is why it's dangerous for others to hold him. Emil is still absorbing magic even after hatching, but she is fine because she is his magical parent. Later, Emil formally greets Richard, explaining that it remembers everyone from within the egg and recognizes them as people who were kind to Chloe. As Chloe and Jude are its magic parents, Emil vows to help protect the land and the people they care for. In a private conversation with Richard, Emil clarifies that its protective blessing on the land is tied to the lifespans of its magic parents. Once Chloe and Jude pass away, Emil will leave, a fact Richard must consider in the future management of his territory. The serious discussion is cut short when Emil declares it's time to eat, as its parents must be hungry. At the dinner table, Maria presents Chloe with an enormous salad, hoping the vegetables will strengthen her plant magic. Emil explains that it sustains itself on the magic it receives from Chloe and Jude, but since it shares Chloe's affinity, it also enjoys vegetables and offers to share the meal with her. When the others express concern about a dragon being seen by the townspeople, Emil casually demonstrates its ability to turn invisible. Before they report Emil's birth to the High Priestess, Emil asks to speak with Chloe alone, revealing that it has inherited Gaia's memories, including the secret of Chloe's second life. Emil explains that it still carries its parents' lingering desire to be Chloe's strength, and it can sense the part of her soul that is twisted by the trauma of her past. Knowing that dragons cannot tolerate deceit, Chloe decides to tell Emil everything. She recounts the painful story of her first life, being shunned by her family and abandoned by her fiancé for her useless plant magic, being bullied at school, and being manipulated into creating a poison by the one person she trusted. Her tale ends with her miserable death in prison, cursed by those she once loved. Emil asks if she wants revenge, but Chloe firmly says no. Her only wish is to live peacefully somewhere far away from her past, acknowledging that her downfall was her own fault for being too dependent on others. This time, she wants to be independent, but she is already surrounded by kind people like her grandfather, Jude, Maria, Lulu, and her mentor, Grandpa Tom. Emil observes that Chloe's heart is not pure white but a complex mix, and that's what makes her interesting. It promises to stay by her side for her entire life, until she grows old and dies, and even vows to give her a grand dragon funeral. Chloe asks if Emil knows who sent her back in time, but Emil only knows that a very skilled human was likely involved, as it can sense the residue of powerful magic. Chloe finds comfort in knowing that this time, at least, she will not have to die alone. As the seasons pass, Chloe practices her new earth magic, hoping to one day build a protective wall against the unstable neighboring country of Nedra. While gathering maple sap with Jude, she is praised by Nietzsche for becoming a true, rambunctious Rosenvok girl, a compliment she cherishes. Suddenly, Chloe is struck by a massive, overwhelming influx of advanced knowledge about plants, poisons, and magic, all flowing directly into her mind. Her right hand, marked with the master-disciple crest, begins to move on its own. She understands with horrifying clarity what this means. The contract transfers all of the master's knowledge to the disciple upon the master's death. A vision of her beloved mentor appears in her mind, and with a heart-wrenching scream of, "Grandpa Tom," Chloe collapses from the shock and grief. Chloe awakens in bed, looking frail after being asleep for 2 days with a high fever. She recalls a sudden flood of unknown grass magic knowledge pouring into her mind just before she passed out thinking of Grandpa Tom. Sitting up in alarm, she calls out for Grandpa Tom while her own grandfather and a maid watch over her. Her grandfather offers a simple, sorrowful apology which leaves Chloe confused, wondering why he would say sorry. She asks if this is about Grandpa Tom and questions whether he died from something other than illness or old age, as her grandfather looks on with a grim expression. He decides to tell her the unvarnished truth, explaining that because Grandpa Tom taught her grass magic, it made her appear rebellious and brought shame to their house. As a result, the gardener Tom was tragically executed by Marquis Morgan. Chloe is frozen in absolute shock, her eyes wide with horror as she absorbs the devastating news. Overwhelmed by grief, Chloe lets out a piercing scream and her uncontrolled magic causes thorny vines to erupt violently throughout the room. Her grandfather rushes to hold her as others look on in concern. Through her tears, she blames herself completely, crying that she killed him because he was involved with her. Her grandfather comforts her, insisting it isn't her fault and that he shares the blame. He reveals a darker secret, telling her that Marquis Morgan has been sending assassins ever since she arrived, and he has been fighting them off in secret. He knew Morgan was a rotten man but was powerless to stop the execution, a failure that now weighs heavily on him as he explains Morgan eventually turned his resentment towards her beloved teacher. It is explained that Grandpa Tom willingly accepted his execution, knowing that any resistance would bring harm to Chloe and her family. He could have won a fight, as his grass magic was at its maximum level while Chloe's father only possessed level 40 fire magic, but he chose peace to protect her. Worried, Chloe asks about her friends Lulu and Mr. Kenny, and her grandfather reassures her that they are safe and were not executed since they didn't use grass magic, and are now living with Lulu's mother. Her grandfather then offers to take revenge on Morgan, but Chloe immediately stops him, not wanting him to face danger because of her. He tells her it's already too late and that she is deeply involved. Chloe looks down at a letter in her hands, realizing that her reliance on others has put everyone she cares about in peril. Crying, she calls herself foolish for only thinking of herself, admitting she never understood the consequences because she never had people to care for before. She tells her grandfather it would be better if she disappeared, but he pulls her into a tight embrace and commands her not to even think of following her master into death. He explains his own pain, showing her portraits of his lost family, his wife Dahlia, his son Poirot, and his daughter-in-law Misa, and says he couldn't bear to lose her too. The small creature Emil adds that if Chloe, its magic parent, dies, it will die as well, since it is still growing. Hearing this, Chloe understands that she cannot die. Suddenly, a man named Byrne rushes in to announce that a huge number of dandelion fluffs have flown in. Chloe's grandfather picks one out, revealing it's a dandelion letter from Mr. Tom, explaining the rest were likely just camouflage for this one message. The letter reveals Tom's final thoughts, saying that meeting Chloe, teaching her grass magic, and passing on his knowledge to her were the greatest joys at the end of his life. The message ends by telling her not to worry and wishing her a life blessed with happiness. Overcome with emotion, Chloe weeps, wishing she could have seen him and spoken with him one last time, as a tender memory of her as a small child holding hands with her dearest teacher flashes through her mind. Later, Chloe sits with a box of Grandpa Tom's grass magic tools, sent by Kenny. She wonders why Lulu couldn't have used them and figures Tom never taught her how. She confides in Emil that she sent dandelion letters to Lulu but has received no reply, and having the tools feels empty now that Grandpa Tom isn't here to praise her. She contemplates revenge against the Morgan family, but acknowledges that as nobles of the frontier, attacking them could ignite a war between noble houses. Furthermore, she knows that legally, no one could interfere with a master's right to punish his servant, which is what her father was to Tom. Feeling weak and not wanting to cause her grandfather any more trouble, Chloe believes revenge is impossible unless she severs all ties and acts alone. Emil comforts her, saying it likes her even when she's weak and promises to stay with her no matter where she goes. Another girl then offers to carry Chloe to the royal capital whenever she's ready to seek her revenge, as Emil playfully captures her. In the next moment, Emil is flying high in the sky with a dizzy and terrified Chloe, who screams that she's going to fall. A light-haired boy watches from the ground, thinking it looks cool. He tells Chloe that this is an easy way to get to the royal capital, but she is confused about why she would need to go there, having forgotten his plans. The boy reminds her that he will be enrolling in Lield Royal Academy next year, a place that triggers a traumatic memory for Chloe which she calls the second act of my abuse. He explains that he must go to become a lord even though he hates the capital and its stuck-up nobles, and he promises to return home for every break. Chloe worries that if her brother gets a new family, she will only be in the way, and she decides she absolutely does not want to return to school. She resolves to hone her skills as an apothecary and become independent before she turns 14 and is forced to attend the academy. The scene then shifts to her new life, where she has opened a free pharmacy for the local townspeople. A line of people waits as Chloe offers free medicine in exchange for feedback, which Emil correctly identifies as data collection. A desperate father rushes forward, begging for help for his daughter whose fever hasn't broken in 4 days while the town doctor is away. Chloe examines the girl, noting a swollen throat but no rash, and prepares to make a fever-reducing medicine with Rigo grass. A memory of Grandpa Tom surfaces, his voice advising her that adding sweetness makes medicine easier for children to drink. Remembering his words to always think of the patient, Chloe adds extra syrup from a sugar maple tree. The little girl drinks the medicine and smiles, finding it sweet. Chloe looks on, wishing she could have learned so much more from her teacher. The grateful father thanks Chloe profusely as his daughter begins to feel better. Chloe tells him to take the child home to rest. Just then, a woman named Diana arrives, asking for medicine for babies at the orphanage. Chloe reflects on how she was never thanked for making medicine in her past life and finds the new feeling ticklish. Diana explains that another baby was abandoned at the orphanage the previous day. Luckily, a woman named Lady Doma found the infant quickly, but a baby's health can be fragile. Chloe promises to prepare some baby-safe medicine and bring it over later. Despite her exhaustion, she pushes forward, determined to keep training so she can stand on her own 2 feet. Later, at a temple, Lady Doma thanks Chloe for her hard work, and Chloe thanks her for the use of the space. Over tea, Lady Doma asks Chloe why she is in such a hurry to become independent, observing how serious she is about her apothecary work. Lady Doma decides to speak to Chloe as an adult, guessing that the emotional scars from her birth family run deep. Chloe explains that she can't rely on her grandfather forever and knows that someday her brother will marry, and she doesn't want to be in the way. Her goal is to become a true professional. Seeing her resolve, Lady Doma tells Chloe she has a request for her. Lady Doma asks Chloe why she thinks the orphanage is always so full. Chloe guesses it's due to monsters or wars creating orphans, and Doma confirms this is only part of the reason. She reveals the harsher truth that vulnerable people are often forced into unwanted pregnancies. Understanding immediately, Chloe listens as Lady Doma makes her request. She wants Chloe to create a contraceptive, a medicine to prevent these unwanted pregnancies from happening. Lady Doma explains to Chloe that contraceptive pills are a medication to prevent pregnancy. She notes that poor households and unmarried individuals are especially in need of such a thing, as unwanted pregnancies often lead to tragic endings. Chloe thinks back to her previous life, recalling even more horrific rumors about the subject and realizing just how desperately this medicine is needed. She observes Lady Doma choosing her words carefully, being mindful that she is speaking to a child. Their serious conversation is interrupted by Emil, who tells Grandma Doma to wait, insisting that Chloe shouldn't have to make such a monumental decision by herself. But Chloe, with a determined look, says that she wants to be the one to deliver this important medicine to those who need it. Lady Doma then asks the crucial question of whether Chloe can actually create the pills. Chloe confidently confirms that she can, as the knowledge for making them was part of what she inherited from Grandpa Tom. However, she points out a significant obstacle. The pills require rare and expensive materials, which clashes with the goal of making them affordable for the poor. She then tells Lady Doma that she has decided not to keep secrets from her grandfather anymore and wants to include him in this plan, so they decide to bring the Lord into their discussion to assist them. With her grandfather now involved, he quickly points out that the plan is pointless if only the wealthy can afford the medicine, and they agree to figure out pricing and distribution as they go. Chloe brings up another serious concern, reminding them that the temple's doctrine teaches that children are a gift from the gods, making the very idea of medically controlling births a direct contradiction to their faith. She expresses her fear that both Lady Doma and her grandfather could be reported to the Central Temple for heresy. Her grandfather looks grim, admitting she is right and he hadn't even considered it. He presses his hand to his forehead, regretting his own shortcomings and lamenting that his late wife would have surely noticed such a detail. Lady Doma kindly reassures him that he has always been dedicated to his people. He explains that to sell the medicine, they would have to confront the Central Temple, a task he dreads as he considers them a waste of time. The country's religion, which worships the god Zeno, has over 100 temples, all of which are overseen by the incredibly powerful Central Temple in the capital, an institution so influential that not even the royal family can ignore it. Chloe thinks with disgust about the temple's corruption, recalling a rumor that a large donation could buy a secret method to get rid of an unborn child. She knows the priests in the capital are drunk on their own power and would never approve anything that threatens their authority. Her grandfather asks Doma if she's prepared to be hated by the central authorities, but Doma just smiles, saying she's probably already disliked and has long been forgotten by them. He concludes that the greatest challenge will be finding a way to get the expensive pills to the poor who truly need them. Chloe suggests selling the pills at a high price to the rich and a low price to the poor, an idea her grandfather praises. But he quickly sees the flaw, noting that the wealthy are often stingy and those who would agree to such a plan likely don't need the pills anyway. He realizes they would need the king's authority to enforce such a system, as his own power as a border marquis isn't enough to silence the nobility and the temple. Chloe remembers the king from her past life as a cold man, uninterested in his people's struggles and even in her, his son's fiancée. She fears that if he discovered her ability to make rare medicine, he would confine her for the royal family's benefit, so her existence must remain a secret. Just then, Emil interrupts their heavy discussion by flying up to Chloe and declaring it's hungry, complaining that it didn't get enough magic from her brother, Jude. As Chloe gives Emil some of her magic, an audacious idea begins to form. She asks Emil if it is a dragon, and then asks her grandfather and Doma about dragons in their myths. Her grandfather confirms the temple's holy books speak of gods fighting evil alongside dragons. Chloe turns back to Emil, asking if it can change its size and appear at will, which it confirms, though growing large is tiring. With a spark in her eye, Chloe unveils her grand plan. They will claim to be following the command of a sacred dragon, staging a divine prophecy. The plot is that High Priestess Doma will receive a divine message from the dragon, who is troubled by the suffering of poor children. This prophecy will grant the formula for the pills to a chosen pharmacist and will command that the wealthy pay a great price, allowing the medicine to be sold cheaply to the poor. Emil enthusiastically adds that it will grow to a massive size behind Doma at the Grand Temple and threaten to destroy the capital if the chosen pharmacist is harmed. Doma and the grandfather erupt in delighted, almost maniacal laughter, loving the idea of giving bold commands to the pompous priests and scaring off nosy officials from the capital. Despite her clever plan, Chloe feels a pang of guilt and asks if it's truly okay for a dragon to lie. Emil wisely responds that if it leads to fewer unhappy children, then it is a good thing. It adds that this is its way of thanking Doma, who prayed for it even when it was just an egg. Touched by these words, Lady Doma begins to cry, explaining that after decades of hardship as a priestess, she never imagined she would be praised by a dragon. Chloe smiles and comforts her, saying that everyone, including the children at the orphanage, loves her dearly. With renewed resolve, Chloe promises to create the best medicine possible to show everyone at the Grand Temple just how great Lady Doma is. The first step of the plan is to gather ingredients. Chloe asks a man named Nietzsche to dive into the sea for a special yellow kelp, but her attempt to draw it is so comically bad that another man, Gauche, bursts into laughter. An annoyed Chloe tells him to draw it himself, and his much better sketch allows Nietzsche to recognize the plant, which grows on rocks 5 meters underwater. Nietzsche uses water magic to warm himself and dives in, soon emerging with the correct kelp. Back in her workshop, Chloe begins the intricate process she learned from Grandpa Tom. She extracts slime from the kelp, mixes the leafy parts with gold, adds alcohol and other ingredients, and finally channels her magic through the concoction. Thanks to her inherited knowledge, her first attempt is a success, and she creates a batch of finished pills. She explains that this medicine is far better than the poisons she made in her past life because it doesn't harm anyone, it simply gives people the freedom to choose when to have children. She presents the 50 doses she made, explaining that one pill is effective for a full day after an hour and has no side effects. With the medicine ready, her grandfather announces that he, Chloe, a noble named Hawk, and Emil will travel to the capital. Both Chloe and Hawk protest, not wanting to return to a place of bad memories, but Emil insists it needs Chloe's magic to grow large enough for their performance. The grandfather puts his foot down, reminding his grandson Jude that he is the next lord and must learn to protect their home in his absence. He then tells Chloe that she cannot avoid the capital forever. To help the weak, she must become strong herself. His words resonate, telling her to know her enemy and overcome them, with his promise to protect her, giving her strength. Surrounded by visions of her past tormentors, Chloe hardens her resolve, ready to face the capital once again. As Chloe prepares for her journey to the capital, she is suddenly overwhelmed by visions of the people who tormented her in her past. Her brother Jude notices her pale face and expresses his concern, but she insists that she is fine and must go. A maid named Maria rushes to her side, urging her to pull herself together. Maria reminds Chloe that 3 years have passed since the traumatic aptitude test and that she has become much stronger since then. She advises Chloe to stand tall and be ready to verbally destroy the Marquis if she encounters him. Nearby, her grandfather finishes giving instructions, ordering Jude to patrol the border with caution and not to slack off. Jude looks at Chloe with concern one last time, and she reassures him that she is okay. The people of the estate gather to see her off, reminding her that she is the granddaughter of the great hero, the frontier lord Richard Rosenvok. They encourage her to hold her head high and show the capital how wonderful she has become. Just as she is about to leave, the father of the girl she had helped with a fever approaches, apologizing as his daughter insisted on giving her a gift. The little girl, now completely healthy thanks to Chloe's sweet medicine, shyly hands over a handmade charm and a drawing she made of Chloe. This heartfelt gesture strengthens Chloe's resolve. Jude watches her, seeing that she is now truly ready for what lies ahead. Feeling the support of her people, Chloe mounts a beautiful white horse and declares herself Chloe Rosenvok, the proud daughter of the frontier Marquis. Riding alongside her grandfather, she vows not to show a single disgraceful face in the capital, and they set off with their party. After a full week of travel, they finally arrive at the royal capital. Their destination is the Rosenvok estate, a residence that her grandfather admits has been plain since his wife Dahlia passed away, though Chloe finds she likes it just the way it is. He confirms with Lady Doma that word has been sent to the Grand Temple and they are expected at noon. Chloe changes into the disguise of a male temple apprentice and asks how she looks before the group prepares to head out. Chloe is told that her disguise is perfect since most temple apprentices are boys, so no one is likely to recognize her. She mutters that she is losing faith in the Grand Temple, having learned that many of their so-called accurate predictions are just the result of eavesdropping through peepholes in the temple rooms. She compliments Hawk on his fine noble attire, and he humbly replies that he is only a viscount, a minor title granted by his father. Doma explains that her simple outfit is a small protest, as she hasn't received a single promotion since being assigned to Rosenvok. With a look of disdain, Chloe's grandfather calls the temple a den of scheming hypocrites, and they proceed towards the massive, ornate building. At the entrance, a priest rudely informs them that the high priest will not meet with them and tells them to leave. Chloe's grandfather points out that they sent notice in advance, while Chloe whispers to Hawk that this is likely a power play to force them into bribery or begging. Instead of playing their game, her grandfather simply states they will leave. He cleverly declares that he will interpret the temple's refusal to meet as them being too busy, and therefore their silence is an approval of his proposal, which he will report to the royal family. This sends the priests into a panic, and they quickly change their tune, begging him to wait and come inside. A man identifying himself as the deputy high priest emerges, offering a hasty apology for the misunderstanding and assuring them the high priest is waiting. He insists they are not mocking Rosenvok, which he calls the kingdom's western shield. Chloe's grandfather simply remarks on the pointless 20 minutes they have already wasted. Inside the grand hall, Chloe senses that they are being watched by more than just the people present, with eyes on them even from the ceiling. Hawk tells her to ignore it, confidently stating that no one in the room is stronger than she is. Finally, they stand before the high priest, who greets Lord Rosenvok after a long absence. The high priest offers a hollow apology for the delay, but Chloe's grandfather retorts that it's disheartening to be so easily forgotten when his people risk their lives defending the country, pointing out that the temple's support hasn't reached the frontier in years. The high priest then asks what brings them here, saying he heard Doma received a divine message. Doma begins their elaborate story, recounting how just a month ago, While praying, a magnificent dragon appeared before her. The priests in the hall gasp in shock at the mention of a dragon. Doma continues, explaining the dragon called itself the guardian deity of Rosenvok. It told her it could no longer stand by and watch the growing number of unhappy children. Therefore, it commanded them to create a birth control medicine to prevent unwanted pregnancies among the poor. The priests immediately erupt in protest, shouting that all children are blessings from the gods and there's no such thing as an unwanted pregnancy. They dismiss the issue as a problem unique to Rosenvok. Doma calmly counters that many female believers come to her in tears over this very problem, a reality that she believes pained the dragon. Lord Rosenvok then cleverly uses their own argument against them, saying that if this is only a problem in their remote region, then all the better. He states they will produce the medicine only in Rosenvok and then reveals he has a sample with him. Seeing his plan, the high priest requests to verify the medicine. A priestess uses appraisal magic and confirms its effectiveness. When asked where the apothecary is, Doma explains the dragon granted the recipe to a specific person in the Rosenvok family and warned that if any harm befalls this apothecary, the entire kingdom will fall. The high priest's tone shifts immediately, admitting that even wealthy families seek his counsel on controlling their number of heirs. He asks if the temple could have some of the medicine to offer them. Doma agrees but states the price was also set by the dragon, free for the poor, and 100,000 gold per dose for the rich. One of the priests, enraged by this, shouts that they are defying the temple, and he grabs the vial of precious medicine, intending to smash it. Doma screams that he will anger the dragon, and as the bottle hurtles through the air, Chloe signals Emil to act as they had practiced. A magical vine of light shoots from Chloe's hand while Emil swoops in to catch the falling vial. At the same moment, a massive, clawed foot slams onto the temple floor with a thunderous crash. Emil transforms into a gigantic, terrifying dragon, appearing in the center of the hall and roaring at the stunned priests, who can only scream in absolute terror at the divine being they have just angered. The magnificent dragon, Emil, silences the groveling priests with a roar as Lord Richard observes that the temple is, as always, only concerned with its own preservation. Emil announces that it finds the air in the temple unpleasant and will now act as it pleases, declaring its intent to return to Rosenvok. As Richard and Doma bow in acceptance, the terrified high priest begs the dragon to wait. The priest who caused the incident continues to plead his case, but the dragon finds him annoying and unleashes a torrent of icy breath, freezing him solid on the spot. With a final farewell, the dragon soars out of the grand hall and into the sky, leaving the stunned priests to marvel that they have just witnessed a real dragon. Back at the Rosenvok estate, Emil reverts to its small, exhausted form and immediately asks Chloe for more magic. At the same time, a mountain of letters arrives from the Grand Temple, desperately begging for another audience. They admit their foolishness in angering the dragon and wasting the precious medicine, acknowledging that the temple's fate now rests entirely in the dragon's hands. Lord Richard meets with the high priest once more, who now completely submits to their terms. The temple agrees not to oppose the distribution of the contraceptives and accepts the dragon's pricing system of 100,000 gold for the wealthy and free for the poor. As they leave, Doma promises to deliver their words to the dragon, and once they are clear of the temple, Richard congratulates her on her masterful performance. Chloe is completely drained from supplying Emil with so much magic, and the small dragon apologizes, promising that transformations will become easier as it grows older. Hawk points out that he saw several people in the temple who weren't priests, identifying them as shrewd nobles, information brokers, and royal spies. This means news of the contraceptive medicine and the temple's public humiliation will spread across the capital without any effort on their part. Hearing this, Chloe realizes with a sense of dread that if the royal family is already aware of the situation, more trouble is surely on its way. The next morning, Chloe awakens with her magic fully restored, and an energetic Emil teases that it's ready to drain more power from her. She discovers that Lady Doma has already departed, having impatiently rushed back to Rosenvok to begin her work of distributing the medicine and educating the people. Just as Chloe settles in, her grandfather appears in formal attire, announcing that he has been summoned to the royal palace. He explains that news of the incident at the temple has reached them, and they wish to question him. Chloe panics at the thought of the scary people from her past and begs him to be careful and to promise he will return safely. Hawk reassures a worried Chloe, explaining that her grandfather is more than capable of handling the royals, even suggesting he likely changed the summons time to suit his own schedule. He reminds her that no matter what, her grandfather will always return to the home where she and Jude are waiting. To pass the time, Hawk offers to take Chloe sightseeing or shopping, promising to protect her no matter what. Chloe has only one place in mind that she wishes to visit. They arrive at a horrific scene, a massive, desolate pit where the bodies of executed criminals are unceremoniously thrown. Hawk explains with an apology that this is where Grandpa Tom was buried, without a grave marker, because he was branded a criminal by the Marquis. Chloe tells him not to be sorry, as she was the one who asked to be brought here. She turns to Emil, stating that this is where her teacher rests, and that she and her father are the ones to blame for his fate. Emil declares that Tom was its teacher too, and agrees to help her. Chloe looks upon the pit, filled with the sorrowful remnants of many unfortunate souls, and decides that she must at least bring them peace. Pointing forward, Chloe unleashes her grass magic with Emil's help. Instantly, the barren pit of death transforms into a breathtaking garden. A wild flood of flowers, including lavender, tulips, and lilies of the valley, erupts from the soil, blooming in defiance of season or logic. Chloe declares she will turn this place into a heaven for them. She kneels and prays for Grandpa Tom, though she feels it will never be enough to atone for what happened. Emil explains to a stunned Hawk that this miracle is possible because a great grass mage rests in the soil, and they have imbued the garden with enough magic to bloom for 2 years. Hawk then creates a magical barrier to protect the sacred place. When they return to the estate, Chloe's grandfather has come home safely. After welcoming him back, he asks her a startling question: if she hates the royal family. Chloe admits that she does, because they use people up and discard them. Her grandfather then delivers a shocking blow. She has received a marriage proposal from a prince and must travel to the capital the next day. Chloe is horrified, realizing her engagement to Prince Dominique was never officially cancelled, and she begs her grandfather not to send her back to them. Her hatred for the royals runs so deep that she vows to take her own life with a perfect, untraceable poison from her past life if she is forced to go. Seeing the depth of her despair, her grandfather quickly clarifies that the proposal is not from the second prince, Dominique. It is from the first prince, Prince Abel. He explains that after her adoption, Morgan corrected her official records to list her as a grass mage. Now that a dragon has appeared and approved a grass mage from Rosenvok, the royal family has connected the dots and believes she is the chosen one. Chloe realizes someone who knew her face must have been at the temple and reported her presence. It could only have been her father. The man who cast her aside for her magic now wants to use her power by making her a queen under his control. A cold, determined fire ignites in Chloe's eyes. She looks up and declares that she will go to the royal palace, vowing that she will not let her father or the royal family have their way. As Chloe and her grandfather approach the grand royal palace, he remarks on the look of pure hatred in her eyes, and she confirms that she knows this is the very place where she died in her previous life. Her grandfather is surprised by the elegant dress she has chosen, as she normally hates dressing up. Chloe explains that it is a calculated move. In her past life, her attempts to be modest and unassuming only made her seem weak, which led to her being mocked and trampled on. This time, she refuses to pretend to be weak and will instead show everyone the vast difference in their class, a decision her grandfather proudly supports. He then places a stunning necklace around her neck, telling her it was a keepsake from her beloved grandmother, Dahlia. He makes Chloe swear on Dahlia's memory that she will not show any disgraceful behavior. With grim determination, Chloe tells him to be ready to pick up her bones, but he simply chuckles, assuring her that she can count on him. Upon their arrival, they are informed that Emil must remain behind, as it would be dangerous if the royal family discovered its existence. To their surprise, they are not led to the formal audience chamber but to an outdoor courtyard. Hawk expresses his distaste for this arrangement, feeling as though they are being treated like a sideshow, while Chloe's grandfather correctly guesses that the royals wish to observe Chloe's grass magic firsthand. In the courtyard, the king greets them warmly. Chloe takes in the royal family, the king, the queen, the second Prince Dominic, and for the first time, the first Prince, Abel. She notes that the youngest princess, who made her previous life a misery, is thankfully absent. For a moment, Chloe feels the urge to look away from them all, but she forces herself to meet their gaze, refusing to show any weakness. Her grandfather proudly introduces her to the court, making sure the king will remember her name. The king dismisses the need for formal greetings, calling the event an unofficial meeting and inviting them to have a seat. Chloe offers a charming greeting, though she is acutely aware that all the powerful nobles of the kingdom are gathered on the surrounding patio, watching and judging their every move. The queen offers Chloe some sweets, but Chloe cleverly waits, prompting her grandfather to explain that proper etiquette dictates she will not eat until the royal family partakes first, a subtle jab at the queen's attempt to test her for poison. The queen then offers her tea, and Chloe immediately asks to switch cups with her grandfather, stating plainly that she does not wish to die just yet. Her grandfather, realizing her cup is poisoned, calmly agrees to drink it, saying he has lived long enough. Chloe recognizes the poison as a slow-acting type that lingers in the body and slowly destroys it. Just as he lifts the cup to his lips, the king shouts his name, stopping him. The king apologizes, admitting it was a test to prove that Chloe is no ordinary girl. Her grandfather is furious, declaring the attempt on their lives an outrageous insult to Rosenvok's unwavering loyalty. The king, however, is merely impressed with Chloe's incredible poison detection skills and declares that she is the one truly fit to be queen. Disgusted by the royal family's rotten nature, Chloe's grandfather firmly states that he will not allow her to marry outside of Rosenvok. The queen asks Chloe directly why she is so against marrying the prince, and Chloe respectfully replies that she is already a princess in her own land of Rosenvok. At this, Prince Abel himself steps forward. He tells Chloe he wishes to use her knowledge of medicine to improve the country and asks for her help. While Chloe finds his noble goal more trustworthy than anything his brother would say, she maintains that there are ways to serve the kingdom without marrying into royalty. The king gives her permission to speak her mind without fear of punishment, so Chloe decides to say the one thing guaranteed to make them reject her. She declares that Prince Abel is weaker than her, and that she doesn't consider anyone weaker than herself to be worth her notice. As the court erupts in outrage at her insult, thick, thorny vines burst from the ground, encircling the royal family and the nobles. Chloe calmly warns them not to move, as the thorns are sharp enough to require surgery if they pierce the skin. Her grandfather explains that Chloe uses this very wall of thorns to defend their nation's border, proving she is a full-fledged warrior despite being only 8 years old. He reminds the court that Chloe was abandoned by her parents precisely because of this magic. At that moment, Chloe locks eyes with her father in the crowd. He attempts to burn the vines with his fire magic, but screams in terror as Chloe effortlessly overpowers his flames, mockingly asking why he's so scared of a little grass magic. Her eyes glowing with menace, Chloe tightens the vines around him, asking how it feels to be restrained by the very power he so despised. She declares that his life is now in her hands and prepares to pour more magic into the vines to avenge Grandpa Tom. Before she can go too far, her grandfather stops her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. He tells her a child like her shouldn't have to dirty her hands and that he will take care of the rest. He then unleashes his own formidable grass magic, engulfing her father in a crushing grip of vines. The onlookers are stunned by this display, finally understanding that grass magic is far more than just a tool for decorating graves. The king, thoroughly impressed, declares that it's natural someone so powerful wouldn't settle for a weaker partner and agrees to consider the engagement matter dropped for the time being. As Chloe's party prepares to leave, the king issues one final order. She is to provide him with a sample of any great medicine she creates in the future. Back at their estate, Chloe collapses in exhaustion, finally free from her tight dress and painful shoes. She sighs, knowing that even after they return home, she has a mountain of work waiting for her. But as she rests, a wave of relief washes over her. The engagement is off, her ties to the cruel Morgan family are severed, and the hell of her past life is finally over. She knows the only place she truly belongs is in the warmth of Rosenvok, with the family who is so proud of her. The next day, as they prepare to leave, Chloe is tending to the flowers in her work clothes when their maid, Maria, scolds her for not being dressed appropriately for a guest. The guest is none other than Prince Abel, who has come to see her. He smiles, remarking that while she looked so grown up yesterday, today she looks properly like a child again. In a bonus chapter, Chloe and her friends are at the seaside gathering ingredients. After their work is done, the energetic gauche goes for a swim in the freezing winter water. Emil encourages Chloe to try as well, reminding her that she has mastered water magic. Hesitant at first due to past bullying, Chloe decides to face her fear and discovers a beautiful underwater world. Her brother Jude arrives, worried after hearing she had gone to the sea. He finds her soaking wet and pulls her into a tight hug, scolding her for being in the water for an hour without telling anyone. He tells her she doesn't understand her own worth and that she is their family's treasure. Hearing this, Chloe blushes deeply as the others laugh, happy to see her finally looking her age. Prince Abel making a surprise visit to the Rosenvok estate. A nervous Chloe instructs a maid to serve tea in the garden arbor, a location she chooses for its proximity to her plant-based weapons. Hawk senses her unease and reassures her that he will remain by her side throughout the meeting. In the picturesque arbor, Prince Abel makes small talk, asking Chloe if she often wears dresses. She explains that she only dressed up for the royal invitation and asks him to excuse her current simple attire as they are preparing to depart. Getting straight to the point, she tells him that his visit during her grandfather's absence is troublesome and asks him to state his business briefly. The prince reveals that he wants to understand the source of her strength, questioning how a grass mage like her can possess such unwavering confidence. Chloe asks if he is mocking her grass magic, and his flustered reaction, along with that of his guards, confirms her suspicions. With sharp insight, she correctly deduces his secret: he is not compatible with any of the 4 great magic types. She immediately feels a sense of empathy for him, realizing he must live with a deep-seated inferiority complex, much like she once did. She understands the immense pressure he must face as the first prince without a conventionally powerful magic, and she shares her own painful history of being abused and discarded by her family for lacking fire magic. She recounts her journey of training relentlessly in the frontier, building a defensive wall with her plants, and becoming strong enough to defeat magical beasts on her own. Her mentor, Grandpa Tom, taught her the true value of grass magic, and her grandfather showed her that she had a place where she could shine. Even after all her efforts, her parents still cast her aside. It was only when she realized she could accomplish things that even powerful fire mages couldn't that she was able to step out of the darkness. Now, she declares, she is confident she could defeat a level 60 great magic user in 5 minutes, and she subtly paralyzes the prince's guards with her power to prove her point. Chloe explains that on the frontier, raw strength is what matters most. Everyone, including her grandfather who uses wood magic, hones their natural aptitude to its fullest potential to protect their land. The prince listens intently, realizing that any magical aptitude can be powerful with the right creativity and mental fortitude. Moved by her story and her strength, he decides to confess his own secret: he is a light mage. Chloe is stunned, as light magic is an incredibly rare and revered gift. However, the prince explains that while people see light mages as saints, they are also presumed to be weak. He laments that because all previous light mages were female who only used their power for healing, there are no training manuals to help him develop his abilities for combat. He confesses that he wants to become strong and live with his head held high, just like her. Chloe, respecting his earnest desire, agrees to help him. She asks Emil to search its ancestral memories for knowledge on light magic. She then recites this information to the prince as if it were from a secret family text. She advises him to level up his healing abilities by practicing in hospitals, using his mana until it's nearly depleted to increase his capacity. She assures him that a light barrier can protect him from any disease. She tells him that once he reaches the master level, which he can achieve by curing the terminal redworm disease, he will be able to create physical barriers of light and even call down spears of light to attack his enemies. The prince is ecstatic and begs her for the secret text, offering to pay any price. Chloe agrees to provide him with a handwritten copy, stating that he can pay her back once he becomes a master. The prince is amazed that she already considers herself a master and wonders why he failed to capture her attention. Chloe explains that her older brother, who is in the same age group, is incredibly strong, and that everyone on the frontier is a master, making her unimpressed by the sheltered royals. She declares that she has no desire to live in a world where she is not respected as an individual. At that moment, her grandfather returns. Furious that the prince would visit his home and meet with Chloe alone, he calls it an abuse of power and strictly forbids any future unsupervised meetings before telling him to leave. As the prince departs, he thanks Chloe for her help. Later, Chloe tells her grandfather that she has no interest in the prince, as she knows the royal family only values her now because she is useful. Her grandfather understands and promises to find reasons to refuse any future proposals. Chloe reflects on the prince's difficult life, understanding his struggle all too well. On their journey back to Rosenvok, Chloe feels a sense of finality. She has crushed her father, cancelled the royal engagement, and will likely never see her former tormentors again. In the distance, she spots her brother Jude riding out to meet their party. They share a joyful and emotional reunion, with Jude admitting he was terrified the royals had taken her from him. Chloe promises that she will always return to him, as Rosenvok is the only place she belongs. Leaning against her brother's shoulder, she knows that one day she will have to leave this warm and comfortable home, but for now, surrounded by her loving family, she is finally home.